Find your favorite shows online at jupiterbroadcasting.com. This episode brought to you by GoDaddy.com.
Coming up on the Linux Action Show, the show is 100% more beard this week as the B-Man is out sick from holiday parties. Never fear, the C-Man swoops in like the Dark Knight himself and delivers a swift blow of open source justice as I share my favorite Linux podcast client, my adventures in building the ultimate mobile Linux workstation, and so much more. Here we go! Welcome to the Linux Action Show, Season 14, Episode 10. My name is Chris, and it's just me today. The B-Man, unfortunately, is out sick, so I thought, we could have done a rerun show or something like that, and depending on the length of this show, we might have some highlight clips later on coming up in the episode. But, we missed you guys, and the B-Man wanted to be here, but he ended up getting pretty sick again, so he's staying home to hopefully try to recoup and really lick the thing instead of trying to show up anyways and then keep being sick. Hopefully he'll be back next week, but don't worry, I've got a fun show lined up for you this week. I spent some time going over some of my ultimate favorite things, and I want to cover them in this episode. It still kind of feels like the holiday to me, so I thought, instead of doing a traditional format show, since the B-Man isn't here anyways and it's just me, we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to cover my favorite Linux podcasting client, and actually, I don't know if I should just call it Linux. I think it's probably my favorite podcasting client out of, doesn't matter the platform. I think it's the best podcasting client, period. I've got that coming up. Also, I realized I have an Android app that I have been using that has got to be, it's my go-to save my butt app all the time. It's free, and I've never talked about it here on the Linux Action Show, so I'm going to talk about that today. And then later on in the show, I've got myself a new laptop recently during the holiday, and, I went back and forth with this thing. I tried Windows 7 on it, I tried Ubuntu on it, I tried Linux Mint, I put an SSD in there, and I experimented with different settings for SSD performance, tried ButterFS. I've got a whole bunch of stuff regarding that I'm going to talk about later in the episode, and that's going to be awesome. And then also, I figured, since it's just me today, why not throw out to the live stream? We've got the live stream audience here with me, and I opened up the Skype line, and they can Skype in at Jupiter Broadcasting at any point during the show to comment on anything I'm talking about. That could turn out to be a horrible idea because I am live, but I have faith in the awesome Linux Action Show audience. Right, guys? Right? All right, before we go on, though, I want to tell you about my Runs Linux this week because it's so epic. Like I said, you guys, I'm Oprah over here. These are my favorite things. These are my favorite things! How was that? This week, that's right, Iron Man runs Linux. Now, if you're watching the video version right here, I'm showing you a comic book shot. And, you know what? I forgot how to pronounce his name. I think it's Mike, chat room. Somebody will remind me here in a minute. But he posted in the Jupiter Colony, Iron Man runs Linux. And he took his comic book and he got a nice still close-up. And if he scanned it in there, and if you look, Iron Man runs KDE 3.5. Now, that makes sense. He's a busy guy being a superhero and running his multi-billion-dollar corporation. He probably doesn't have time to go to KDE 4 yet, though I'm sure he's already got Jarvis working on it. Pretty cool, great thread over at Jupiter Colony, and it was funny because Matt King USA, a regular in the Jupiter Colony, immediately calls it out as fake, and then somebody else in the chat room went out and got the same comic book and in the Jupiter Colony and verified that it actually was in the Iron Man comic, him using KDE 3.5, so that's pretty cool, and that was Mike Stefferson, I believe it was, or Steffson or something, so thanks, Mike, in the Jupiter Colony for sending that my way. That was just an awesome Runs Linux. Now, okay, I did tease this Android app, but before I get to that, I do have to say a huge thanks to GoDaddy.com. You guys know we've talked about GoDaddy now for three and a half years. It's 2011, and GoDaddy is still helping us out. And it's not just the Linux Action Show that GoDaddy's helped out. I mean, if it wasn't for GoDaddy.com and their sponsorship of the Linux Action Show, I don't think we'd be able to do any of the shows we do. So GoDaddy indirectly also brings you all of the other shows on the network. It's not just the Linux Action Show. It's Stoked and Jupiter at Night and all the other shows. So I really honestly mean it when we say we truly appreciate it when you use our promo code Linux to save 10% on checkout, or Linux20 to save 20% on shared hosting. And I know that sometimes some of you have considered the spot where you're supposed to enter the promo code a little challenging to find on checkout. They've moved it, but my recommendation for you is just skip all of that and check out one of the GoDaddy apps. They have apps for Android, BlackBerry, and the iPhone. And pretty simple to just go in there, check out, and then put the promo code in. Boom, Bob's your uncle. You're done. So thank you, GoDaddy, sincerely for your continued support of Linux Action Show, but also the entire Jupiter Broadcasting Network. And Happy New Year's to GoDaddy and everyone out there. We really, honestly appreciate it. Now, another thing that I like quite a bit is this Android pick. And if you're a Linux guy, and I'm guessing if you're listening to the Linux Action Show, you are likely a Linux fan, then you should check out ConnectBot. It's an SSH client for your Android phone. And there are, honestly, a fair amount of SSH clients in the Android market. This one, though, is, well, one, it's free, but it's extremely handy. A great UI, great formatting. I've, like Yast, Ncurse's terminal stuff works and renders perfectly in this thing. It's got great speed, works over Wi-Fi. It supports SSH keys. You can sign right in if you don't want to use a password and you just use the key. It has different emulation modes depending on the type of box you're working on. It can stay connected in the background so you can SSH into your machine and then, hit the home button and have it go into the background. You can do something else on your Android phone, like check your email or something like that, and then pop this guy back up. It's still connected. That's really nice and handy, like when I'm checking something that somebody said to me in an email, maybe like the server's IP address or something, then I need to go plug it into an SSH terminal. Love that. And I haven't done a review yet of my Galaxy Tab. I picked up a Galaxy Tab, and I talked a little bit about it on the last episode of Linux Action Show, Season 14, Episode 9. And one of the things I commented on was that its 7-inch form factor really made it super easy to thumb type. I could really get some pretty good speed out of that thing. You take that Galaxy Tab. Now, you have to get it with a contract. Verizon just lowered their price. T-Mobile sometimes has great prices. That's how I got mine, was on sale through T-Mobile. You take that always-on connected Android tablet. You take this stuff like ConnectBot and some of the X11 forwarding applications that are out there, and you have a really great mobile Linux administration system that fits in your coat pocket. And that's what's great about the 7-inch form factor in the Galaxy Tab. I don't know if it's going to be the end-all Linux tablet. I got to figure it's not going to be. CES is next week. That's going to be the future of tablets. Obviously, what they're going to cover there is going to be nicer than what the Galaxy Tab is. But as far as what you can buy on the market right now, with Android 2.2 and a gigahertz processor, and I'll tell you, there's something different about this. My Evo is a gigahertz processor. In fact, I think I even at the moment have my Evo clocked to like 1.1 gigahertz or something stupid. And the Galaxy Tab honestly feels faster. It feels like there's just a little more headroom for Android. Like it's just got a little more performance. And you get that, fits in the coat pocket, always on connectivity. These great tools like ConnectBot, these are changing the way I work. This is just a dumb example, but it's nice. There's a burger place that's a half hour down the street. Sometimes on a slow day, I can take my Galaxy Tab now, put it in my pocket, and I can take a little bit extra longer lunch. And that's a really nice thing. And so these kinds of things are really awesome. And ConnectBot, it's free. It's up there. I'll have a link in the show notes for it. Check it out if you've got an Android device. There's a couple of other good ones. I don't remember. There was one for the iPad that was pretty good that somebody sent in to me, but I don't remember the name of it. So if I can find that in my email, I'll put that link in the show notes as well. So that's ConnectBot, and go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com, look for the Linux Action Show if you want to install this. And, heck, why not? Or you can search for ConnectBot on AppBrain. And then also in every show notes, I'm trying to put all the other previous Android picks. Majo in the IRC chat room, in the live room, is been kind enough to keep a running list of all of my different Android picks. and then is compiling that list over on AppBrain, and I try to link to that in the show notes as well. So thanks to Majo for doing that. Sometimes it's just the kind of little things that slip my mind that nice guys like him take care of. Now, before we jump into my review here of my laptop, I thought I'd talk a little bit about some of our upcoming plans for the Linux Action Show. One of the things that I thought I'd spend this time doing, since we're not doing a traditional show, is let you guys know a little bit about what's coming up in 2011. And I think one of the things that we're going to try to get into a lot more is back into interview focuses. We want to talk to developers again. We're not going to turn every Linux Action Show into an interview episode, because we really personally enjoy doing the reviews, trying out the different Linux software. We want to get more hardware because we're geeks like that. I don't know, that's difficult because right now we finance that stuff on our own. So that's just kind of when we have the free available funds to do hardware reviews. Well, one of the things that we want to do is start talking to a lot more people. And coming up in the next few months, the beginning of February, and for a lot of you, you could be listening to this next week. My wife may have already had our second child, a new baby girl. And so I don't know if I'm going to be out next week. I don't suspect I will be, depending on what we're hoping to be the timing, but that's just one thing to be aware of. And then in February, Ryan will be having his first child, a daughter, and he'll be out. I don't know. For the first kid, I don't know how long he's going to need. That's just one of life's things. So if he's going to be out for a couple of weeks, we don't know. Maybe he's not even going to miss a single episode. But if he is, I want to start making the offer out there. If you've considered doing a podcast, or if you've wanted to ever co-host an episode, and you've got a project you're working on or something like that, I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe trying a Skype co-host, and I'd love to talk to somebody working on a Linux project. I had somebody working on the Zen kernel, not Zen like XEN, but Zen like ZEN, and it's this guy, he's working on what he wants to be just the most awesome, stable Linux kernel for everyone to use, with like the best patches that maybe aren't mainline but are still stable. And he said, I'm getting burnt out. I'm now just the one last guy working on this project. I still have a passion for it, but it's just burning me out. And that kind of stuff that's probably happening out there, because I thought one of the things about open source in the holidays is that people are at home, maybe they have a little extra time, and they're going to code. So where a lot of companies sort of take time off during the holidays and there's sort of a lull in productivity, I almost wonder if at least the early seeds aren't the reverse for open source developers. Like if maybe people are at home and they have a little downtime and they're brainstorming their next open source project, or they're maybe laying down that first initial code, or finally getting back to something. And you almost wonder if in a few weeks, some of the early seeds from the holiday that would traditionally be a lull in productivity won't actually be a boon for open source. If that's true, that could be happening just around February. And I'd like to sort of keep an ear out and an eye out for that kind of stuff. If you're involved with something, or if you've got a strong Linux opinion and you've got a good working webcam and a good microphone and a decent broadband connection that can handle a good two-way Skype conversation, email me, chris@jupiterbroadcasting.com. And maybe if the B-Man has to take a few weeks off in February, if he does, maybe you could come on during that time. And maybe if he has to take a couple weeks off or something like that, we could rotate in a couple different people or anything like that. I'd like to know your thoughts. If you'd like to join me, let me know. Again, email me, chris@jupiterbroadcasting.com. But before I talk about that HP laptop, I'm going to tell you all about GPodder. It's my absolute favorite of all time. I mean, seriously, guys, it's my favorite podcast client, and I just can't wait to tell you about it. So, without further ado, let's get into GPodder. Alright, it's time to talk about GPodder. I teased it up quite a bit, and that might have been a little obnoxious, especially since I'm about to make the following couple of caveats. So don't tar and feather me here. GPodder is awesome, but I gotta say, it might not be your podcast client of choice for video. It definitely does the job, and I use it for that myself. But you might want to check out Miro, Miro, for video podcasts, if you primarily only do video podcasts. If you kind of mix it up like I do, and you've got some audio and you've got some video, GPodder is awesome. It's a GTK application, and that means it's going to look a little more native on the GNOME side of things. And I know a lot of other applications out there offer this functionality. Rhythmbox, Banshee, Omrock. Okay, I don't need to go down the list. BashPodder, great one. Listen, they're all great. But GPodder I have been really falling in love with. And in fact, I'm going to tell you a little bit about my love affair with the GPodder, because it really started with the application itself a long time ago. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with GPodder in sort of its standalone form, where it's just a really great podcast catcher that has now, with the latest version, I don't really get the numbering nomenclature, but 2.11 on their site, though internally I've heard them refer to it as 2.7, so I don't really know what that means, but go to GPodder and get it from their site. Because what it lets you do now is sync to a device. File system based is a pretty much catch-all for most devices that are not iPods. When it's an iPod, they have an iPod sync. And that is really awesome, because you can get in here and you can get these podcasts and download them, listen to them on your machine. If you listen to them here, it won't sync them. When you sync them to your machine, it marks them as played here. Or when you sync them to your device, it marks them as played on GPodder. Okay, nothing too fundamentally crazy awesome about that, but nice. Sure, granted. Let's action it up a bit, because GPodder has gotten a lot slicker. It's not your grandpa's podcatcher anymore. Oh no, it's gotten a lot slicker thanks to GPodder.net. And GPodder.net is an online directory of podcasts and a way to find people. It has some elements of a wiki-esque where you can sort of self-tag podcasts where you think, you can find the Linux Action Show, and if it needed a tag of awesome, so when people are searching for awesome, it came up. And you can jump into their podcast directory, and they have different categories, and you could tell it's still not big yet, and that it's more geek-centric focused. It's it's big podcasts or Linux podcasts and geek tech shows, but isn't that exactly what you want? And it's also had some performance issues when I've been testing it, like it's having right now, because I think the live stream is going there. But what's great about it is, A, you can share what you subscribe with your friends. That's not really the main thing. Oh, Mike H is calling in. But it lets you browse and subscribe right into GPodder, which then syncs it to your GPodder client. Now, hey, Mike, what's going on?
Hi, Chris. It's Mike over in the UK.
How you doing, buddy?
Not too bad, you?
I am good. Now, are you a GPodder user?
Yeah, I've got it on my N900.
You've got GPodder itself on your N900?
Yep, the actual app itself.
Oh, that's slick. So you can do all of your podcast management on the device itself?
Yeah. Basically, I had to go onto your page and get the links out of it.
Yeah.
And manually edit them into the actual settings. But yeah, it automatically downloads them whenever it checks to see whether there's a new one. I find it really useful.
That is slick. I use Google Listen, which then can sync up with a folder in my Google Reader, so I can kind of manage them that way. But I'd love to have the full. Now, have you used the GPodder.net directory service?
No, I've only used the actual application.
Well, if you can get a new build of GPodder, that's on the N900. That's the way to go, because you can browse and subscribe to arbitrary RSS feeds through GPodder.net, and then your GPodder application syncs with GPodder.net, and it keeps your play counts, your positions, and you can browse the directory and subscribe through their site. So if you have multiple machines, so like you could have GPodder on your N900, and it would sync its play position with GPodder on your desktop.
Oh, that's useful. I'll have to look into that then.
Yeah. So GPodder.net is really slick for that, and it's you kind of have to have one of the newer builds, because they're, I think, within the last build or two, just introducing the service. And I think that's a killer combo.
I know the N900 is on version 2.11 now, so
okay. I think that's what you need. I think it's 2.11 that you need.
I'll take a look at it later then when I finish watching you.
Nice, very good. Well, thanks for calling in, Mike.
No problem. See ya.
Good one. So I guess that's really all I have to say on GPodder. It has been sort of helped me. I went through a phase where I started pulling away from podcasts because I just make them so much that I just sort of focused on that. But I find when I'm working sometimes it's nice to have something that's not controversial talk radio, but still radio-esque to listen to, and GPodder has been awesome for that. I feel like I'm kind of seeping in information while I listen with my spare cycles. I'm a little ADD like that, but I really like GPodder. combination with GPodder.net. You got to check it out. You can find the Linux Action Show in their directory as well, and you can find some links in the show notes for this episode. And if you want to subscribe to any of our shows, go over to JupiterBroadcasting.com, and then on the right-hand side, we've got all our different feeds. And you just pick what show you want in which various format, because I put it in just about everything, and you've got it. Okay. Now, I teased it earlier, but let's get into that HP laptop review. And welcome to the HP review segment. Now, I got myself an HP MV17 laptop, and I'll be honest with you guys. At first, I thought, it came with Windows 7. I'll see how it does, right? How bad could it be? I'll tell you how bad it could be, especially if you want to wipe it. And I decided to wipe it. This sucker here has... because it's the big unit, I guess. I don't know. I got it off Newegg for a pretty good price, but it has a pretty good hardware lineup. So I thought, let's see what it can do. And it's got 2 hard drive bays in it. A laptop with 2 hard drive bays? Yes, sir. You heard correctly. And so I thought, let's put an SSD in one and a regular hard drive in 2. Well, I found out that it has a proprietary hard drive docking thing that you have to buy, but that I worked around. That's fine, sure. So I put Windows on here as a fresh install to see how it worked as a gaming machine, because it has like an HD Radeon 5870 or something like that in there. I threw it on there, and you know what I found out? I found out it worked like crap because it doesn't have out-of-the-box support for a lot of the hardware in this thing. Fine. Totally reasonable. It's a newer machine. That happens. Windows doesn't update their built-in drivers. Sure. Great. Turn on Windows Update, doesn't find anything. All right, I go to HP's website. They don't even have all of the drivers available. Primarily the wireless was the issue. I couldn't get the Broadcom 802.11n chipset in here working. They just didn't have the driver available on HP's website. I don't know how Windows users deal with this kind of crap, seriously. So eventually I got the driver by claiming first I had to research what the wireless chipset was in this laptop, and then go find other HP products that had that same wireless chipset that they had released 64-bit Windows 7 drivers for. Went to those, pretended I had that product, got that, installed it, and it worked fine. About that point, I said, screw this. I don't even want to see. I don't care how games run on this. And I wiped it, and I put Mint 10 on here. And let me tell you something. Out of the box, Mint 10 came up with everything working except for the wireless. Go figure. Within probably 30 seconds of running it, I had a little restricted drivers pop up that said, hey, there's restricted drivers available for your system. I clicked that sucker, and guess what? Wireless drivers. So I decided to see how Linux Mint would run on a Core i7 laptop with an SSD hard drive. It's only 128 gigabyte, 6 gigs of RAM. I thought, let's see how it could do. Now, if you're watching the video version, I'm going to turn on the laptop. And this has been powered off since before the show started here. And so it's booting up right now. And it does the BIOS thing. And now at this point, it'll start loading the bootloader right about, I think, now Grub should be loading. Yep, Grub just loaded, and now Mint is booting up. So here we go. 1 1000, 2 1000, 3 1000, 4 1000. 5 1000, 6 1000, 7 1000. It's at the desktop. It booted. You can't really see it here. Let me see if I turn up the brightness a little bit. You might be able to tell. It booted from completely powered off in 7 seconds. And that's how everything runs on this machine. I mean, this is truly a performance powerhouse. It is a complete pleasure to use. Everything works out of the box. Well, I haven't actually tried the eSATA port yet, but the HDMI port, once the proprietary driver is installed, so I shouldn't say out of the box exactly, but once the proprietary driver was installed, my HDMI out port on this thing, hooked up to a 1080p monitor with sound, works perfectly as a second monitor. It's great. It didn't work without the proprietary driver, but you know what? I wanted that anyways because I wanted my fancy comp-is and all that kind of stuff. It also has VGA out. It has a gigabit Ethernet. It also has DisplayPort. I should say I have not tried the DisplayPort either. I don't have anything that has DisplayPort. It has USB 3.0. We all know that Linux was the first operating system to have USB 3.0 support, so of course that works. And it's got a Blu-ray drive in it. Honestly, I don't think that works under Linux, but that's not really Linux's fault. That's sort of a copy protection fault thing. So I decided to use the ButterFS, BTRFS, as my file system for my root drive and my home drive. And it has been exceptionally well performing. I mean, the battery life on this thing kind of sucks because it's a Core i7 and, it's got 2 hard drives in it. and an ATI Radeon 5870 or some junk like that, and a 17-inch 1080p screen. But yeah, it's an ATI video card. It's a great Linux workstation. I mean, just a fantastic Linux machine. And Mint now, I changed my default Mint theme a little bit. In fact, my studio machine here is also using the same theme, and it is just such a gorgeous operating system. Let me see if I can get the name for you. You gotta go to Ubuntu if you're an Ubuntu user or a Linux and Mint user, and there's probably packages for the other distros, but there's a PPA out there for Orta, and it's a GNOME theme that is just absolutely gorgeous. That I really, really am just loving. And so if you go to ubuntugeek.org or .com and you scroll down, you'll find instructions they have for setting up a PPA and then installing packages. And yeah, I know a theme that needs packages is annoying, but what you get, it has to be the most polished looking Linux. Well, I mean, if you're watching the video version, you can kind of see some of it now. In my personal opinion, this is just an absolutely outstanding theme that I've loaded onto my laptop now, and I've loaded onto my desktops that I am just thrilled with. You put this on this nice HP laptop that has this sort of metal finish to it. It's got a, I don't know what you exactly want to call it. Actually, I should take a second to talk about the looks, because that's actually an area that I'm not too thrilled about. It looks like a MacBook Pro ripoff, in my opinion. It's got that chiclet black keyboard now. Because this is a 17-inch, it also has room for a number key, and they go ahead and throw that in there, unlike the MacBook Pro. And it has sort of a metal textured finish to it that's kind of neat. And yes, it has the HP Beats audio, which I don't even know if that works under Linux. It is the chat room is asking if I have tried the Finanza icon theme, and that is what this overall GNOME theme is using, and it's absolutely brilliant. It's Mini Nessie was asking that in the live stream chat room, and I absolutely love it. If you're running GNOME and you've gotten a little bored with your theme, go check it out. I'll try to put a link in the show notes. I'm really bad about that kind of stuff, you guys. So back to the look of this thing. To me, it looks like a little bit of a MacBook Pro ripoff, and it has honestly discouraged me a little bit, because not that I really care. I just don't want people to think that I'm trying to be a big poser. Now, the one thing that's a little different, though, is its bottom isn't a sealed piece of metal. It's a plastic bottom, sort of a traditional laptop bottom, but the positive side to that is you can open up and you can add RAM and you can add a second hard drive and you can change the wireless PCI riser card and things like that. So that's really nice. In fact, I did just that, right? I opened mine up and I added a second hard drive, and it comes with the bay empty. It's built pretty well. The edges, there's a little gap between the finish and the edge. It's not built quite as solid as a MacBook Pro, but I think I paid $1,300 for this thing off Newegg. $1,300 versus a core, and this was a quad-core i7. You can't even get the MacBook Pro in a quad-core configuration, so come on. Yeah, it looks a little bit like one, but who cares? That's not, at the end of the day, that's not what's important. It is a great Linux system. And Mint 10, I am just so thrilled with. I've been running it since I reviewed it a few episodes ago on the Linux Action Show, and I just absolutely adore it. Oh! We have a caller. Infinity Galactic, you're on the air, dude. What's going on? Did you turn down your live stream?
Hey,
I was just
wondering if the graphic support for the HDMI or the out of the box, whether the open source graphics driver for the Radeon HD works with the HDMI, because I've been running Ubuntu on a Studio 17 laptop.
Right.
And that has the HDMI port, and it does work out of the box with the open source drivers. Also, how's the 3D?
It works, right? It works, but I can't use the internal screen, and I don't know why that is.
Because I found that up to about 10.04, I started getting pretty good support just with the open source drivers.
No, mine, when I had both screens on, I couldn't use either screen, but I could only use one screen at a time. The 3D performance, I've only done a little bit. In fact, I've been working on getting Star Trek Online to work under Wine, and the performance is definitely respectable. The laptop heats up and gets hot, but to get both monitors working at the same time, I had to go with proprietary driver. And once to do that, I never tried 3D gaming without it because my first order of business was just to get my second monitor working. So I never got to try the 3D performance without the proprietary driver, but I was very happy with what I did get. There you go. Well, thanks for calling in, dude.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right. Well, that was a good question. And, if I have to reload this again for some reason, you never know. I will probably try that first. I will try that. And if I do that at some point, I'll update you guys. And if I get the Beats audio, the Beats audio does sound kind of good. HP did not. This disclaimer, I'm not paid. I wish I was paid to talk about this laptop. Trust me, I wish. But HP did not. This is just something I bought myself. I've wanted a new work rig for a little while, and so I got that. All right. Now, I'm going to wrap up the show here at this point, but if you've managed to stick with me this long, good on you. It's kind of a sleepy post-New Year's edition of the show where I don't think I've quite woken up yet, but next episode we'll be back, and, we were considering doing our predictions episode this week, but since Brian couldn't make it, I just wanted to do something a little more unofficial. The Linux Action Show could use a little break up in its format from time to time anyways. It's kind of good to do that, and it's kind of felt like a holiday episode. So I think we'll still do our predictions next week. A lot of you went over to the last episode of Linux Action Show and put your predictions in the comments, and so I want to read those. And there's still a chance to do that if you go over to jupiterbroadcasting.com and go to Linux Action Show Season 10, Episode 9, and put your comments in there for your predictions of Linux for next year, and we'll try to include those in the show, I think. I don't know. I'm worried it might be a little prediction fatigue out there. So if you have prediction fatigue, let me know. We don't have to do it either. But I do predict Brian will be back next week, hopefully, because next week is the beginning of a whole new season, Season 15. Holy crap. We're going to brainstorm sort of an overarching theme. We like to do that for each season. Sort of what the seasons represent now is a theme for that period. And this season, we really sort of refocused on distributions and the services around distributions that are creating support, like Ubuntu One, the Software Center, and the OpenSUSE build service was really a focus this season. I don't know what's in store for us next season. Who does, right? We'll find out, though. I think we're going to talk about it. It sort of organically happens. It's not really us that usually sets. We sometimes think we have an idea, but really, it's sort of the open source community that eventually sets the tone of the season. I mean, of course, there will be Fedora 15. There will be Fedora 15. And that may just be the theme of next season. All right, everyone. Well, thanks so much for watching this episode of Linux Action Show. I'm going to sign out here, but I'm going to throw in, probably to fill in a few minutes of the show, a few highlights from last year's Linux Action Show. I wanted to run this for you in 2010, but to be honest, I just didn't get a chance, and I went through and I collected some of these clips, and I wouldn't necessarily say they're the best of, but they're some of my favorite moments that kind of stuck out in my memory. So I've gone and picked out a few of those, and I'm going to roll them into this episode, sort of look back on some of the stuff that happened in the last year. So enjoy that, and we'll see you next week.
Welcome to Linux Action Show, Season 14, Episode 4. My name is Chris. No.
Really?
No. My name is Brian. That guy is Chris.
Hey there, Brian. My name is Chris, and
Bingo.
I think the new One Laptop Per Child X03 runs Linux, though you can't quite tell, because if you see this new screenshot, and audio.
Can't believe I got my name wrong.
Did that really happen? That wasn't a joke?
That really happened.
Really?
That really legitimately happened. That's not my kind of joke. That's
not your kind of joke. You like your name.
I'm a different kind of joke. I like to say my name a lot.
Yeah.
I go out in public, and I like to talk to people.
You might forget my name.
About, like I'm talking to someone on the street. We're like, oh, hey, this cafe looks really good. I don't say, that was a pretty good cafe. I'm like, Brian really likes that cafe, and Brian is going to eat there again.
Yeah.
Like I make a point out of it, so they walk away. They go, wow, that guy's name was Brian.
Hey, you didn't let me finish my thought on the One Laptop Per Child here.
I'm just blown away. I don't know how I can possibly do an interesting show if I can't even get my name right.
Well, we'll work on it.
I don't know if we can.
Oh, well, we can only do the best we can do.
That's a good point.
And that's what these One Laptop Per Child people thought. when they threw together this screenshot where it includes elements from iOS and also
Is that just an OS 10
iChat window, like early iChat too, like old iChat, right?
Holy
And then
crud.
you've definitely got some Android UI elements, including this. You failed to properly remove your SD card warning on there.
That is what that is.
Yeah.
So we know that this is fake. Chris.
Hey there, Brian. Jaguar is the world's most powerful scientific supercomputer.
Say that again. Jaguar.
Jaguar.
Jaguar,
Brian.
you mean?
Yeah.
You mean Jaguar.
Have you seen this thing? One of the listeners in the chat room before the show, I had a whole another Runs Linux all lined up, and I was like, totally going to cover this. But no, he sent this our way. It has 220,000
No, wait. Before
cores.
we go into how awesome the Jaguar is, let's talk about the thing that you were going to cover. Because if you remember the last episode, which was season 13,
it was
episode
bad,
10,
man.
It was awesome. We had these autonomous flying robots and everything.
Lasers.
And I come in here and sit down this morning, and Chris is like, "Well, I've got a Linux." How did you describe it?
This is the Gen Touch, dude. And
No. He said specifically, now this week we got this thing.
yeah, I was not too excited about
Yeah,
it.
I'm like, well, that's not going to do, man. We got to find something different. So we got the Jaguar.
Yeah, I like this Gen Touch because it's an Android tablet that snaps into a netbook housing. We've seen that before.
Yeah, we've seen it before. It's cool. I'm not
the price they
against it.
say on this thing's going to be around $350 with a gigahertz
that's
CPU.
not bad.
I know. And this one that we're looking at is called the Espresso Doppio or something like that.
It looks
A
cool.
little more expensive with a 10-inch screen and 160 gigabyte hard drive capacity. Supposedly Android 3.0 with a 3 megapixel camera. That all sounds really good, and they're going to have multiple different SKUs of it. The buzz is bad, though.
Really?
Buzz is they're built cheap. Check this rocking guitar out. It runs Linux. It's pretty cool. The Cherry Asia netbook runs Linux. Actually,
Sure
it
does.
runs Android at that.
Dude, it runs like everything you can put on an ARM-powered netbook. Chris.
Hey there, Brian. Slot machines also run Linux.
Of course they do.
This is a neat one. Now, not all. I'll give you a little disclaimer. I personally know not all slot machines run Linux, but
They should.
They should.
Action show.
This is the Linux Action Show, and this runs Linux. That's Tron, Brian. You see this? The Tron trailer runs Linux.
Oh, yeah. Trust me. The first time I saw that trailer, pause, zoom in. I think that's, wait a minute. Oh my gosh.
You gotta love my BuzzFeed
Yep.
too, because I share these stories in the BuzzFeed.
Gorgeous.
And one of the first things people said in my BuzzFeed is, "Oh my God, I want that on-screen keyboard." Last week we made a scarfparty.me joke during the GoDaddy spot.
We sure did.
And Matt here went over, must have been during the live stream, and actually registered scarfparty.me and set up a site with a tribute to the Linux Action Show to see how this amazing craze, the Scarf Party craze, started.
Chris.
But it makes me nervous. Yeah. Well, I guess I do have a terminal.
I load up Xterm, I type top.
Yep, and
And
there's your top.
I can type kill and kill whatever I want to kill because my phone is basically a Linux desktop computer
And it's
with an
wild.
amazing UI on it.
They're even using Xorg.
Yes.
About every time, say 6 months, the Linux Action Show has themselves a whole mess of Linux distribution reviews, and this episode's no different. It's time for our Ubuntu 10.04 review.
Yep. I do believe it is time to review something big here. It's the first episode of the season,
'Tis the season.
and Fedora 13 was slated to come out tomorrow. They pushed it back another week, I believe. Is it about a week?
Yeah, I think it was either a week or 2 weeks.
Week or 2 weeks. Expensive.
Hey.
What are you gonna do?
I want to give us a fist bumple right here. A little fist bumple.
Boom.
We're doing Ubuntu 10.10 review today. We're recording on October 10th, 2010
At 10 a.m.
at 10 a.m.
Yeah.
That's meant to
It's
be.
10.
And all
10
of that
at
adds
10.
up to 42 day.
All right, we're going to do something a little different this week. We are going to review a releaseless Linux distro. A Linux distro that has no release. Now, technically, we're talking about Arch here.
Yeah.
This is Arch Linux.
Yep. You got goats? It's adorable.
I do.
adorable.
I do. I got some goats. Last week. Yep, I've had them for about 6 or 7 days now.
Yeah.
And I've got two male goats.
How's it going? Like, are they doing well adjusting because they're younger?
Yeah, they're young goats. I actually got them at 8 weeks old and 7 weeks old. So we're
so you're
just
still-
finishing bottle feeding those suckers right now.
Are they
It's
already?
adorable beyond
Are
words.
they already like eating away at stuff?
Oh, dude, we had some blackberries in the back of the yard.
Yeah.
And they are just decimating those blackberries. Like we got them to our house.
Now I've heard that it's been a problem with people having them eat the side of their house.
No. Well, okay, here's the thing.
Here's the thing. There's a lot of discussion about goats eating like
There's
tin
your goats for
cans
people watching the video version.
Or by the way, you see what I'm feeding there? Those are bottles.
Those are just any bottles.
Those are Red Hook ESB bottles that I'm feeding my goats. That's right. I use beer bottles to feed my goats.
Can I ask, is there beer in there?
No, there's no beer in there.
BlackBerry app, and it has an Android app.
Coughing right in everybody's face. I'm sorry.
It's early. You know how that. When you,
I'm not going to die. I promise
all right,
myself I'm not going to die.
If you do die, do it on the internet. I have always said that. If you can do it live, you want to do it live.
That's a good point.
So next story on the news docket for this week is a series of stories. I'm just going to put it all under a big
right.
Google
Lay
I/O
it on
umbrella,
me.
right? So Google I/O happened this week.
I'm gonna start surfing the internet. What's on I Can Has Cheeseburger right now?
Now come on. You must have found some of this interesting because this was
Oh my gosh, that kitty is adorable. It's playing with yarn and it's like I Can Has yarn. Oh my god.
the games we are playing right now, like Nexuiz.
Oh, yeah.
I'm downloading Warsaw, Tremulous.
Tremulous.
You know what these are? These are the games we reviewed episode 2 of Linux Action Show.
Yep, the very first round of games reviewing 4 years ago.
Pretty wild, huh? This might be too fast for my old man brain.
I know. That's kind of what I was thinking. I'm like, the other game you like walk kind of slow, and I kind of liked it when you got
Oh my gosh.
because you just limped.
I got to get back in the habit of this game. This is nuts.
Right there.
I do like the vote system.
That guy killed me.
Oh.
I have killed nobody and died twice. All right, next person to kill Chris gets a free high five. No, you can die. You can fall to your death. Didn't know that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought you were joking.
Oh, no. I have that maneuver freaking mastered. If there is a game where you can fall,
right to the
I'm
death.
all about that.
So-
Really, all I do, my approach with this game is just hope something ends up in front of me and pull the trigger.
Please, for the love of God. Yeah. Oh, I killed a guy. I was shooting in a hallway that was empty, and eventually someone stood there, and they died.
All right, Brian. The top story on the news docket.
That just warmed my heart.
For this week. Now, this is going to be it was Google Week, everybody. Google Week was here. So it's going to be a Google-heavy episode, but the first story on the news
let's start
docket.
out with non-Google.
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 Novell reportedly taking bids from up to 20 separate companies.
Okay, wait, what? Let's talk about Open Office.
All right, Brian. So you've probably caught in the news this week there was a anti-Open Office FUD video released by Microsoft.
It was hilarious.
It also takes quite a few pokes just at open source in general.
It does, but it's mostly just about Open Office.
So what I thought we would do is so that way everybody knows what we're going on here. We would roll it in the show because for the audio folks, there's actually it's all audio. I don't even know why they made this a video.
I don't either.
Yeah, it's just stupid animated stills.
But
anyways,
it's kind of funny.
I
found
funny.
it amusing.
So we have a response to this video, and we have some corrections that we'll make after we roll it for you. So go ahead and take a little listen to it.
We originally installed Linux-based PCs running OpenOffice to save money in the short term.
Oh my goodness.
But we quickly found that the exorbitant cost and limited availability of support left us worse off.
What did you do?
I need something I can rely on. If an open source freeware solution breaks, who's going to fix it?
Oh no.
A hugely disproportionate 30% of our IT resources was required for a period of months to service open source. An estimated 25% of additional staff time was routinely required to install
Really?
and
Military
maintain
drones?
open source-based systems.
When I was using OpenOffice.org, I was especially having trouble with macros not being supported enough. I was asking for help from the IT department. They evaluated my requests and suggested that I use Microsoft Excel.
We were accustomed to fielding calls from users in a bind due to difficulties with OpenOffice.org on a daily basis.
With OpenOffice.org, there was total uncertainty about the formatting of documents and also about their inconsistency when shared outside our production group.
Oh, I see what they did there.
Employees using OpenOffice.org weren't always capable of correctly making sense of documents arriving from outside the company and doing so with adequate security guarantees.
What? OpenOffice.org 3.1 failed to deliver on its promise of better Microsoft Office interoperability, severely mangling our Microsoft Word and Microsoft Excel test data files.
I've had students who turn in files that they've converted
This is
from
a hired
OpenOffice
actress.
with formatting problems. That affects their grade.
When I open a large spreadsheet, it can take 10 times longer in OpenOffice.org than Office Excel 2007.
Our employees were frustrated because OpenOffice and our overall IT environment prevented them from being more productive.
New employees lacked OpenOffice.org applications use skills that significantly increased the employee's adaptation period and
They put
adversely
pictures of a baby
affected
on
their
there.
operational efficiency.
Our users' familiarity with the Microsoft Office interface and the uniformity of different application tools have minimized calls to the help desk.
This is a motion
By using
template,
Microsoft
basically.
Office 2007, we have reduced the internal support costs significantly because our staff is familiar with this system.
Oh, 2007.
This increases acceptance and job satisfaction.
The company paid too much for using open code, OpenOffice.org
OpenCode.
software. Efficiency of operations was decreasing.
I don't necessarily agree that open source is a free product. There are always costs related to support, standardization, and compatibility.
When we returned to Microsoft Office after our experience with OpenOffice, you could practically hear a collective sigh of relief across the entire district.
Isn't that awful? So what'd you think of that?
That is the stupidest. I'm going to take these headphones off first. Kind of wanted to take them off halfway through the video because that was driving me a little bit crazy. So there's like 18 million things wrong with that video. I'm not going to go into the fact that half of the people in the video sound mildly retarded.
So
I'm not going to get into
that's an
that.
interesting thing about this video is that so the quotes, the lines in the video are played by actors. However, what they're saying is
real.
From case study, quotes
Right,
from case
study
studies.
quotes,
And
yeah.
Microsoft, always happy to provide the backup data for their video, links to the case studies.
Yeah.
And these case studies, were done by Microsoft Research Corporation.
Yeah, no, I mean, Microsoft Research did the case studies, got some quotes, and put it into a video. I get that. That's fine.
It's just the interesting
That's
way.
fine.
It's interesting
There's
what
nothing wrong with
actors they
that.
decided to hire,
Dude,
and
yeah.
how they read the lines.
They sounded mildly retarded.
They sounded like victims.
They did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the imagery
And I
that
think
they
that was the
decided to
point.
use was over the top, and the sounds. And see, this is if for the audio listeners, you can hear the music they played in that, and the sound effects they added really stand out in the audio version of the show, and that really is the dramatic undertone they try to put in the whole thing, and it's so over the top.
Yeah, my favorite part was when they had the little military people that looked, and like they had the marching sound that
The
kind of was
marching
like
band drums or whatever.
But it was like vaguely Nazi-ish. Like I think that was the insinuation was open source are military Nazis. Like that was the insinuation I got out of it. And I was kind of watching this thing. I'm like, seriously, okay, all right. So I thought we'd take a few minutes and just kind of pick apart legitimately. I mean, obviously the video's way off base.
The video was, what always strikes me, and this is the last, I think, maybe commentary I'll make on the video itself, is that Microsoft always seems to under-budget these things. They always seem to hire actors and production companies who have a lower standard than you'd expect from a multi-billion-dollar company like Microsoft.
Seriously.
And this is a cheap. The video is essentially the composite of a generic motion template with GarageBand loops added underneath it, and then dramatic voiceovers done. I mean, it's a $15 movie. It's ridiculous.
It's cheap. It's cheap.
So, but one of the things what they really attack on in this video is the support aspect, that it'll leave you high and dry and stranded if you don't if you don't use Microsoft Office.
So here's a couple of things I wanted to throw out. The first is, if we're really and legitimately comparing Microsoft Office to OpenOffice, let's start from the most basic level.
Okay.
Let's say, one, you download OpenOffice, and on one hand you do that. On the other hand, you go buy off the shelf a copy of Microsoft
And
Office.
for businesses, it's actually for large businesses, a much more complicated procedure, because you have to buy an open license agreement with Microsoft,
Right.
where you have to buy a minimum quantity of 5 copies of Office, and then they do is they give you a digital download with a key
Exactly.
for your enterprise, or you have to buy the onesie-twosie copies at $400 a pop.
Right.
And either way, it's very complicated. You have to go through specific resellers to get
and you
stuff
have to
for business.
pay for support.
Yeah.
You have to pay for support for Microsoft Office. You have to pay for
It doesn't
support.
come with free support.
If you have a copy of Microsoft Office and you have, my macros just aren't working great. I just don't like these macros.
Microsoft doesn't show up in their
fix your macros
in their Nerdmobile for
They're
free.
not going to do that.
No.
They don't have those little bugs that are painted white and black that they drive around and go screech, and they don't have the nerd herd showing up going,
Right.
okay, I'm going to fix your macros.
Right.
So Microsoft, the problems that they were calling out in the video, the support costs of potentially having broken macros, Microsoft doesn't help you with, even if They charge you. If you pay for support, that's not the support you get. You get support for application issues. You get support for document corruption
You would have
issues.
to do the same thing you'd have to do in Open Office to hire a consultant.
You hire a consultant. You get some of your IT staff to help you. Now, the issue that they were having in the video of, let's say you have a macro in Excel that somebody in the company made, and then you went over to Open Office, and it didn't work quite right. It needed to be modified. Of course, you can have a problem. It's a separate damned application.
Yeah, you didn't do your implementation of Open Office correctly. You should have tested for that stuff and converted the macros to the Open Office macro style.
What the case study really shows is a completely incompetent IT department that did not know what they were doing, did not know what software they were rolling out, and did a really piss-poor job.
You could make that same argument if somebody was on Lotus Notes or whatever you want to say, migrating to Microsoft Office.
Absolutely.
Now, Open Office, you can actually buy support in support packs on like a one incident basis from Oracle directly now.
Yeah.
This is something that Sun offered, and now Open Office, Oracle's Open Office Support Premier Edition or something like that. You can buy these $40 chunks of support from Oracle, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes. And essentially, it's application level support. And I think Microsoft's rate is over $100 an hour for support incidents. So at $40,
this is pretty cheap.
That's pretty good.
It's pretty cheap, and there's a lot of smaller firms, a lot of IT support firms that offer Open Office
my goodness!
support.
So what's funny is that I'm surprised Microsoft went down this route, because the Open Office project actually lists a consultants directory on their website. Again, I'll put a link in the show notes, and you can actually go in here and put in your location. Yep, put in what country you're in, and then what state you're in, and what city you're in, and they will give you a list of the Open Office registered consultants in your area.
And the great thing is, if you go this route, this is my thumb. My thumb is counting number one.
Hey, nice thumb, Brian.
Thumb point means it's probably going to be a little bit cheaper than going through Microsoft, because they're smaller, hungrier firms that can operate in a leaner way. Pointer finger point, they're probably going to have more experience working with a variety of different document types and operating systems and Office file formats, which means they'll probably know the potential issues you'll run into.
That's a huge point.
Middle finger issue, they'll be able to help you whether you're moving to or from Open Office, which means you'll be able to get the best solution for your business.